I am Jade, 24 years old, and I still remember the exact moment my world crumbled beneath me. Standing in my parents' living room, watching the color drain from my bank account statement, while my mother sneered those words that haunt me to this day. Why waste money on a pathetic nobody? The college fund I had worked for years to build gone, given to my sister's boyfriend for his business opportunity. I felt my future slipping through my fingers like sand. Before I tell you how my family betrayed me and what happened after my phone exploded with desperate calls, let me know where you are watching from. Hit the like button if someone you trusted has ever stabbed you in the back, and subscribe to join our community of survivors who turned betrayal into triumph. Growing up in our suburban home in Pennsylvania, I always knew where I stood in the family hierarchy. My younger sister, Brooke, was the golden child blessed with natural beauty, social grace, and our parents' undivided attention. From the moment she was born when I was 4, the family dynamic shifted. Every school play she performed and every soccer game she won became a grand family event. Meanwhile, my academic achievements collected dust on the refrigerator, eventually replaced by her latest artwork or team photo. "Jade, why can't you be more like your sister?" became the unofficial family motto. My mother would sigh this while watching Brooke effortlessly charm guests at our family gatherings, while I sat quietly with a book. "She's going places," my father would add with a proud smile. "That one knows how to work a room." I was the awkward, studious daughter. "At least you're smart," my mother would say when comparing us, the unspoken implication hanging in the air that intelligence was my consolation prize for not inheriting her beauty or social skills. My father, a successful sales manager, never quite understood my preference for science and quiet reflection over parties and popularity. "You better get good grades," he would tell me. "Girls like you need brains to get ahead." Girls like me, the quiet ones, the plain ones, the ones who didn't turn heads when they entered a room. Despite the constant comparisons, I loved Brooke. 3 years younger, she didn't initially understand the divide our parents created. As young children, we were close. I would read her stories, help with her homework, braid her hair before school. She would crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, seeking comfort from her big sister. Those precious moments became fewer as we grew older, and Brooke began to understand her position in our family. By middle school, the once innocent Brooke started wielding her power using phrases she'd heard from our parents. "Dad will say yes to me," she would taunt when I was denied permission for something. Or, "Mom says I'm the pretty one, but you're the smart one, so it's fair." As if our attributes were trading cards distributed equally by some cosmic force of justice. I channeled my pain into determination. If being the smart one was my role, I would excel at it beyond anyone's expectations. I joined every academic club, earned perfect grades, and spent weekends studying while Brooke went to parties. By 16, I was working part-time at the local library, saving every dollar for college. My dream: to become a doctor, to heal others, to prove my worth. "We will help you with college if you keep those grades up," my parents promised. It was the first time they had shown genuine pride in my achievements. When I was accepted into all 7 universities, I applied to including prestigious pre-med programs. Even my mother smiled genuinely. "She's going to be a doctor," I overheard her telling her friends on the phone, a rare note of pride in her voice. For once, I felt validated. My years of hard work had finally earned me a place in their esteem. Throughout high school, I maintained a perfect GPA. While other teens went to football games and homecoming dances, I volunteered at hospitals, competed in science Olympiads, and continued working at the library, plus weekend shifts at a cafe to build my college fund. The bank account slowly grew, supplemented occasionally by birthday money from grandparents and a few academic scholarships I had won. Meanwhile, Brooke coasted through high school on her popularity and charm. She maintained decent enough grades to keep our parents satisfied, but invested most of her energy in her social life. Despite our differences, I still tried to protect and guide her. When she started hanging out with seniors known for partying hard, I warned her about the dangers. When she began skipping classes, I covered for her until her grades started slipping. I still felt responsible for her as her older sister. "Mind your own business, nerd," she snapped when I suggested she study for her SATs. "Not everyone needs to be a friendless loser to get into college." The comment stung, but I persisted. I'm just trying to help Brooke. College applications are around the corner. So mom and dad are paying anyway. She shrugged. Besides, I got invited to Tyler Jackson's graduation party. He's home from State University, and apparently his parties are legendary. That connection will be worth more than any test score. I sighed, recognizing the futility of the conversation. Our values had diverged too far. When Brooke eventually did get accepted to State University on her decent but unremarkable grades, and our parents' influence, the celebration lasted an entire weekend. My acceptance to Johns Hopkins medical program the year before had warranted a dinner at Olive Garden and a store-bought cake. College life started poorly for Brooke. Without our parents hovering and with newfound freedom, she partied more than she studied. Her first semester grades were disastrous, and by the beginning of second semester, she had dropped out entirely, moving back home with vague promises about finding herself and exploring other options. I was halfway through my second year of pre-med, thriving academically despite the rigor of the program. Each semester was a financial struggle, but between my saving smaller scholarships and my parents' contributions to tuition, I was making it work. The dream of becoming a doctor felt within reach, though, still years away. When I came home for spring break, I found our family dynamic had shifted yet again. Brooke was constantly on her phone, smiling secretively at texts and taking calls in private. One evening, while I was helping my mother with dinner, Brooke made a grand entrance into the kitchen. "I have someone important I want you all to meet," she announced. "He's picking me up for dinner tonight." My mother immediately abandoned the vegetables she had been chopping. "Someone special. Oh, Brooke, tell me everything. Is he handsome? What does he do?" And just like that, I was invisible again, silently completing the dinner preparations while my mother and sister giggled over Brooke's mystery man. His name was Tyler Matthews, and he wasn't a college student, as I had assumed. At 32, he was 8 years older than Brooke, who had just turned 24. When he arrived at our door that evening, I immediately noticed several things: his designer clothes, his expensive watch, the luxury car parked in our driveway, and the practiced charm he turned on my parents. "Mr. and Mrs. Wilson, it's an absolute pleasure." His smile revealed perfect teeth as he shook my father's hand firmly. "Brooke has told me so much about you both." My father, typically reserved with Brooke's boyfriends, was immediately engaged. "That car outside, that's the new Tesla Model S, isn't it?" Tyler nodded modestly. "Good eye, sir. Yes, it's been a reliable investment." "Investment?" My father repeated, clearly impressed. "You must be doing well for yourself, young man." "I can't complain," Tyler replied smoothly. "Technology investments have been good to me." My mother was equally charmed, especially when Tyler presented her with an expensive bouquet of flowers and a box of imported chocolates. "Oh my, how thoughtful, Brooke! You didn't tell me he was such a gentleman." Throughout this exchange, I stood in the background observing. When Tyler finally acknowledged my presence, it was with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "And you must be the brilliant sister I'm always hearing about. Pre-med at Hopkins, right? Very impressive." Before I could respond, my mother jumped in. "Yes, Jade's always been academically inclined. Brooke is our social butterfly. Balance in the family." Tyler nodded. "That's wonderful." As they prepared to leave for dinner, I noticed how possessively Tyler placed his hand on Brooke's lower back, how he subtly guided her movements. Something about the interaction made me uneasy, but I couldn't articulate why. Later that night, I voiced my concerns to my parents. "Don't you think he's a bit old for her?" And all that talk about technology investments seemed vague. My father scoffed. "Sounds like jealousy to me. That young man is clearly successful. Maybe you're just not used to Brooke bringing home someone so accomplished." "I'm not jealous," I protested. "Something just feels off." "Of course it does," my mother said with a dismissive wave. "You've always been competitive with your sister. But not everyone measures success by how many science awards they win, Jade. Tyler has real-world success. Maybe you could learn something from him about that." I retreated to my room, hurt, but not surprised by their reaction. Throughout the week, Tyler became a fixture at our house. He took my parents to an expensive restaurant, brought my father an expensive bottle of scotch, and constantly dropped hints about his business acumen and connections. One evening, I overheard him in the kitchen with my parents while Brooke was upstairs changing for dinner. The opportunity is time sensitive, he was saying. We're looking at potential returns of 40% in the first year alone, but the minimum buy-in is steep, which is why I'm being selective about who I share this with. 40%. My father sounded impressed. That's unheard of in traditional markets. This isn't traditional. Tyler laughed softly. This is next generation technology with applications in emerging markets. My last group of investors doubled their money in 8 months. I stepped into the kitchen, interrupting their conversation. That sounds unusually high for any legitimate investment. What's the risk assessment? Tyler turned to me with that same empty smile. The technical details would be quite complex to explain without a background in the industry. But I assure you, we've mitigated risks extensively. My father shot me an annoyed look. Jade, Tyler is trying to do us a favor by including us in this opportunity. I'm just asking questions any investor should ask. I defended. Always the skeptic. My mother sighed. Tyler, please excuse my daughter. She's very analytical about everything. No apology necessary, Tyler said smoothly. Critical thinking is valuable, but sometimes Mrs. Wilson opportunities require vision and intuition rather than endless analysis. The most successful people know when to trust their gut. That night, I decided to do some research on Tyler Matthews. I found very little online about any technology investor with that name. His social media profiles were sparse and relatively new. My suspicions grew, but I had no concrete evidence of anything nefarious. During the remainder of my spring break, I was increasingly excluded from family activities. Tyler had become the center of attention, taking my parents and Brooke to exclusive restaurants and speaking constantly about his business ventures and connections. When I tried to join conversations, I was either ignored or made to feel like I was intruding. The night before I was to return to school, I overheard a phone conversation that confirmed my fears. I had gone downstairs for water when I heard Tyler's voice on the back porch. He was speaking sharply to someone, his charming demeanor completely absent. Listen, I don't care what you need to tell them. Delay it another month. No, they're not going anywhere. I've got them hooked. The daughter is a problem, but she's leaving tomorrow. Yes, the parents are definitely good for at least 100,000. Maybe more if I push the exclusivity angle. My blood ran cold. I retreated silently back upstairs, mind racing. The next morning, I tried one last time to warn my parents. I think Tyler's running some kind of investment scam, I said bluntly over breakfast. I overheard him talking about how you're good for $100,000. Please don't give him money. My father slammed his coffee mug down. That's enough, Jade. You've been nothing but negative about Brooke's relationship. Tyler has been nothing but generous with us, and you're accusing him of being a criminal. I'm just telling you what I heard, I insisted. What you think you heard, my mother corrected. Always so dramatic. This is why you don't have friends, Jade. You overthink everything. She's just jealous that I've found someone successful who loves me, Brooke said, entering the kitchen. She's always been jealous of me. I looked at their three faces unified against me and realized the futility of my efforts. Fine, don't say I didn't warn you. I returned to school with a sense of foreboding, but had to refocus on my studies. Finals were approaching, and the intensity of the pre-med program demanded my full attention. I called home less frequently, tired of hearing about Tyler and his amazing business opportunities. The end of the semester arrived with both triumph and anxiety. I had aced all my finals and been accepted into a prestigious summer research program that would boost my medical school applications. However, the program required a substantial fee that wasn't covered by my partial scholarship. It was time to access the college fund it'd been building since high school. The deadline for payment was approaching, and I was working extra shifts at the campus cafe to supplement what I would need to withdraw from my savings. When I received notification of an unexpected partial scholarship that would cover 20% of the program cost, I was ecstatic. My careful financial planning was paying off. On a sunny May morning, I walked into the bank near campus exhausted from a night shift, but optimistic about finalizing my summer plans. The account had been set up as a joint account with my parents when I was a minor, and though I'd been meaning to change that now that I was legally an adult, I'd never gotten around to it. After all, I trusted my parents with my education fund. I'm here to make a withdrawal, I told the teller, sliding my ID across the counter. She nodded, typing on her computer. And how much will you be withdrawing today, Miss Wilson? $8,000, I said. The amount represented most of my savings, but with the partial scholarship, it would be enough to cover the program and my summer living expenses. The teller frowned at her screen, typing something else. Then she looked up at me with an apologetic expression. I'm sorry, but there seems to be an issue with your account. What kind of issue? I asked, a flutter of nervousness in my stomach. Your current balance is $112.37. I stared at her, certain I'd misheard. That's impossible. There should be over $20,000 in that account. I've been saving since I was 16. The teller turned her monitor so I could see the screen. As you can see, there was a large withdrawal made 3 weeks ago for $22,400. It was done in person at another branch. My vision swam as I stared at the transaction record. The withdrawal had been made at a branch near my parents' home. There must be some mistake, I whispered. I didn't make that withdrawal. It says here it was made by Patricia Wilson. The teller pointed to the screen. One of the joint account holders. My mother. My mother had emptied my college fund. Is there anything else I can help you with today? The teller asked. I shook my head numbly and walked out of the bank in a daze. Sitting on a bench outside, I called my mother with trembling hands. Mom, I said when she answered, struggling to keep my voice steady. Did you withdraw money from my college account? There was a pause, then her voice unnaturally casual. Oh, that. Yes, we needed it for an investment opportunity. It's going to benefit the whole family, Jade. That was my money, I said, my voice rising. I've been saving that since high school. I need it for my program this summer. Don't be so selfish, my mother replied sharply. This investment is going to pay off far more than that little sum. Besides, most of it came from us anyway. That's not true. I was nearly shouting now. I worked for years at the library and the cafe. I saved every birthday check, every scholarship stipend. How could you take that without even asking me, look, we don't have time for your dramatics. We're having dinner with Tyler and Brooke tonight to finalize the investment details. We'll discuss this when you're being more reasonable. I'm coming home, I said firmly. Today, don't give that money to anyone until I get there. Suit yourself, my mother said coldly before hanging up. I packed a small bag, withdrew the remaining $112 from my account, and caught the next train home, my mind cycling between disbelief, rage, and fear. The 3-hour journey gave me time to compose myself, to formulate arguments, to gather the documentation I had on my phone about the source of the money in that account. Surely, when faced with evidence, my parents would realize their mistake. Surely they wouldn't have given my money to Tyler's suspicious investment. When I arrived home, I found my parents, Brooke and Tyler, in the living room, papers spread across the coffee table. They looked up in surprise when I walked in, my small overnight bag still in hand. Jade, my father frowned. Your mother said you were coming, but I didn't expect you so soon. I want to know what's going on with my money, I said without preamble. Tyler stood, his practiced smile sliding into place. Jade, good to see you again. Your parents were just telling me about your academic achievements this semester. Congratulations. I ignored him. Mom, Dad, you had no right to take that money. It was for my education for the summer research program I told you about. Now, Jade, my father began, using the patronizing tone he reserved for when he thought I was being unreasonable. Your mother and I have made an executive decision that's going to benefit this family far more than some summer program. We're investing in Tyler's new tech venture, my mother added proudly. The returns will more than replace your college fund within a year. I looked at Tyler, who maintained his composed expression, then at Brooke, who was watching the scene with a strange mixture of guilt and defiance. Show me the investment documentation, I demanded. Show me the business plan, the risk assessment, the company registration. That's all confidential, Tyler said smoothly. My investors sign NDAs, but I can assure you your parents are making a very wise decision. So you've already given him the money? I looked at my parents in disbelief. My father nodded. We transferred the first installment yesterday, $20,000 from our savings, and... He hesitated. The money from your account. You stole from me, I said, my voice breaking. That money represented years of work sacrifices I made, while Brooke was partying and dropping out of college, and you gave it to a man you've known for, what, a month? Tyler is family now, my mother said firmly. He's going to marry Brooke. I turned to my sister in shock. You're engaged. After a month, Brooke held up her left hand, revealing a large diamond ring I'd somehow failed to notice. Tyler proposed last week. We wanted to surprise you. This is insane, I whispered. All of this is insane. He's conning you. Can't you see that? Why waste money on a pathetic nobody? My mother suddenly snorted, her composure cracking. That's what you are, Jade. Always with your nose in a book, no social skills, no real-world understanding. Tyler is offering us a chance at real wealth, not just some middle-class doctor's salary after a decade of schooling. I stared at her, wounded beyond words by the contempt in her voice. At least he has a future unlike you, my father added with a cold laugh. What were you going to do with that money anyway? Waste it on more classes, more books. You've always been a failure at anything that actually matters, Brooke said, moving to stand beside Tyler. Always trying to make me look bad by being the perfect student. Well, look at us now. I'm marrying a successful businessman while you're still begging for money for summer school. I looked at their faces, these three people who were supposed to love me, now united in their disdain. Tyler stood slightly behind them, a ghost of a smirk playing on his lips. In that moment, I knew with absolute certainty that I had lost them all to his manipulation, and that my money was never coming back. You'll regret this, I said quietly. All of you. I turned and walked out of my childhood home, their mocking laughter following me down the driveway. I had $112 to my name, no summer program prospects, and a family who had just shown me exactly how little I meant to them. The first week after my family betrayed me was a blur of shock and survival instincts. With nowhere else to go, I called my closest friend from university, Amanda, who immediately offered her couch. Stay as long as you need, she said, her voice warm with concern. We will figure this out together. Amanda lived in a small apartment near campus with another roommate, Sarah. They cleared a space for my belongings, which consisted of just my school backpack and the overnight bag I had packed for what I thought would be a quick trip home. The reality that I now had almost nothing hit me in waves of disbelief. I still can't believe they did this, I said on my third night there, staring at the ceiling from Amanda's couch. 22 years as their daughter, and they chose a stranger they met a month ago. Your family sounds toxic, Sarah commented, bringing me a mug of tea, especially your sister, who gets engaged after a month to someone 8 years older. Someone who's being manipulated. I sighed. As much as I hate what Brooke said to me, I know Tyler is using her. He's using all of them. Amanda sat beside me. Have you considered reporting this to the police? They took your money. It was a joint account, I explained for what felt like the 100th time. Legally, they had the right to withdraw from it. I should have changed it when I turned 18, but I trusted them. The irony felt like acid in my stomach. The practical concern soon overshadowed my emotional trauma. I had to inform the summer research program that I could no longer participate. I had to find additional work to cover my living expenses. Most pressing was the fall semester tuition payment that would come due in August. Maybe you could take a semester off, Amanda suggested gently. Work full-time, save up, then continue. The thought of delaying my education was painful, but increasingly looking like my only option. I sent emails to my academic advisor, explaining my situation in vague terms, too ashamed to admit that my own parents had stolen from me. I doubled my shifts at the campus cafe and found a second job waiting tables at a restaurant nearby. Between the two jobs, I was working nearly 60 hours a week, coming home exhausted to crash on Amanda's couch, only to rise and do it all again. The physical exhaustion was almost a relief from the constant cycle of hurt, anger, and betrayal playing in my mind. My parents called a few times in those early weeks. I let their calls go to voicemail, unable to bear hearing their voices. The messages were brief and devoid of apology. Jade, call us back. Jade, you're being childish. Jade, the investment is going well. You'll thank us later. One particularly dark night alone in Amanda's apartment while she and Sarah were out, I hit rock bottom. Staring at my meager bank balance and the calendar marking the approaching tuition deadline, I felt the weight of defeat. Maybe my parents were right. Maybe I was pathetic pursuing a dream that was now financially out of reach. Maybe I should just give up. I was nursing these thoughts along with a cheap bottle of wine when my phone rang with an unknown number. I answered automatically, my defenses lowered by alcohol and despair. "Is this Jade Wilson?" a woman's voice asked. "Yes," I replied cautiously. "This is Dr. Morgan from the biology department. I tried reaching you through your student email but haven't heard back. Do you still work at the campus cafe?" Dr. Morgan had taught my advanced biology course the previous semester. I'd impressed her with a research paper, but hadn't expected to be on her radar. "I do," I confirmed. "I'm actually picking up extra shifts there now." "I noticed you withdrew from the summer research program," she continued. "I was particularly disappointed since your application was one of the strongest." I swallowed hard. "There were financial complications. I couldn't afford the program fee." There was a pause. "I see. Well, the reason I'm calling is that I've been asked to find a research assistant for a special project funded by a private grant. It pays $15 an hour, 20 hours a week, and could potentially lead to a fall research position with additional scholarship support." My heart raced. "Are you offering me the position?" "I'm offering you an interview," she clarified. "Based on your coursework, I believe you'd be an excellent candidate, but there are protocols to follow. Could you meet me tomorrow at my office?" "Yes," I said quickly. "What time?" We set the appointment for between my morning cafe shift and evening restaurant shift. After hanging up, I felt the first genuine spark of hope since the day at the bank. It wasn't a solution to all my problems, but it was an opportunity when I desperately needed one. The next day, freshly showered and wearing my nicest clothes, which Amanda had insisted on ironing for me, I met with Dr. Morgan. Her office was cluttered with books, papers, and plant specimens, but she greeted me with focused attention. "Thank you for coming, Jade," she said, gesturing to a chair. "I won't waste time with pleasantries. Your academic record speaks for itself, and Professor Chen specifically mentioned your exceptional lab techniques." "That's very kind," I said, surprised that professors had been discussing me. "Not kind accurate," Dr. Morgan corrected. "Now tell me why you withdrew from the summer program. The truth, please." Something about her direct gaze made me abandon my rehearsed vague explanation. "My parents took all my savings without my knowledge, the money I'd been saving since high school to pay for my education. They invested it in what I believe is a scam run by my sister's new fiancé." Dr. Morgan raised her eyebrows, but didn't look shocked. "And now you're working 2 jobs and living on your friend's couch based on the circles under your eyes and the fact that you've worn the same jeans 3 shifts in a row at the cafe." I flushed with embarrassment. "I'm doing my best to save for fall tuition." "Admirable, but potentially unnecessary," she said, opening a folder on her desk. "The research position I mentioned is real, and I'm offering it to you now. But there's more. Every year, the science department has an emergency scholarship fund for promising students facing unexpected hardship. It's not widely advertised because the funding is limited." She slid a form across the desk. "This would cover 70% of your fall tuition. Combined with the research position stipend, you should be able to manage your expenses without working yourself to exhaustion." I stared at the form, unable to process what was happening. "Why are you doing this for me?" Dr. Morgan leaned back in her chair. "Because talent shouldn't be wasted due to circumstances beyond your control. Because I've seen too many brilliant students drop out over financial issues. And because your research proposal on cellular regeneration showed exactly the kind of innovative thinking our program needs." Tears welled in my eyes, which I quickly blinked away. "I don't know how to thank you." "Succeed," she said simply. "Complete your education. Become the doctor you clearly have the potential to be. And someday when you're in a position to help another student in crisis, remember this moment." That meeting marked the beginning of my transformation. With the research position and emergency scholarship, I was able to reduce my restaurant hours and focus more on academics. Dr. Morgan's lab became a sanctuary where I could immerse myself in science and temporarily forget my family troubles. Over the next 6 months, I rebuilt my life piece by piece. Amanda and her roommate insisted I stay with them through the summer, and by fall semester, I'd saved enough to contribute to rent as an official roommate when Sarah moved out. The research position expanded to include more responsibilities and hours, further stabilizing my financial situation. I also discovered an unexpected talent for technical writing through the lab work. Dr. Morgan encouraged me to take a scientific communication course, which led to freelance opportunities writing for medical and science publications. The extra income was welcome, but more importantly, these small victories began rebuilding my shattered confidence. "You're bouncing back better than anyone could have expected," Dr. Morgan commented one day, 6 months after our first meeting. "Most students would have crumbled under the circumstances." "I still have moments," I admitted. "Nights when I can't sleep thinking about what they did, days when I check my phone expecting some word from them." "Have you had any contact?" she asked. "Nothing since the initial voicemails demanding I stop being childish," I replied. "I blocked their numbers after a while. It was too painful to keep seeing them pop up." "That might have been wise," she nodded. "Sometimes separation is necessary for healing." In addition to practical support, I found emotional stability through a support group for students from dysfunctional families. Hearing other stories of betrayal and resilience made me feel less alone, less defective. Slowly, I began to understand that my family's treatment wasn't a reflection of my worth, but of their own limitations and vulnerabilities to manipulation. By the end of that year, my life had found a new rhythm. I was excelling, academically, financially stable through my combination of jobs and scholarships, and emotionally stronger through therapy and support groups. I had even started dating casually, something I'd never had time for before. What I didn't know was that while I was rebuilding, my family was crumbling, and that their downfall would soon come crashing back into my carefully reconstructed life. The morning that changed everything again started like any other. I woke early, reviewed notes for a biochemistry exam, and checked my email before heading to a morning lab session. Nothing in my routine suggested that by evening, my phone would be filled with desperate messages from the family that had disowned me. After classes, I had lunch with Amanda in the student center, discussing our plans for the upcoming spring break. "You should come home with me," Amanda offered. "My parents already said they'd love to have you, and Michigan is beautiful in early spring." "Are you sure I'm not imposing?" I asked. "It's been almost a year since everything, but I still feel weird about intruding on family holidays." "Trust me, you'd be doing me a favor." Amanda laughed. "My mother will finally have someone else to fuss over. Besides, you can't spend another break working extra shifts in an empty dorm." I smiled, grateful for her friendship. "Okay, Michigan it is." As we gathered our things to leave, my phone vibrated with a text from an unknown number. Curious, I opened it. "Jade, it's Mrs. Reynolds from next door to your parents. Thought you should know there's been some trouble. Police were at the house yesterday. Call me if you can." I stared at the message, my stomach tightening. Mrs. Reynolds had been our neighbor for 15 years, a kind older woman who had often watched Brooke and me after school when we were young. "Everything okay?" Amanda asked, noticing my expression. "I'm not sure," I replied, showing her the text. "I haven't heard anything about my family in months. Are you going to call her back?" I hesitated, torn between my instinct to protect myself from more pain and concern about what trouble might mean. "I should. It might be nothing but—" Amanda squeezed my shoulder. "Call. I'll wait." I stepped outside the student center and dialed Mrs. Reynolds' number. She answered on the second ring. "Jade, thank goodness. I've been so worried about you since you stopped coming home." "I'm okay, Mrs. Reynolds," I assured her. "What's happening with my parents?" She lowered her voice. "Well, I don't like to gossip, but things haven't been right over there for months. Your sister's fiancé, that flashy fellow he moved in for a while. There were lots of arguments, people coming and going at strange hours. Then about a month ago, both he and your sister disappeared overnight." "Disappeared," I repeated. "Just packed up and left without a word from what I can tell. Your mother was crying in the garden the next day. Since then, I've noticed things changing. The lawn isn't being maintained. Your father's car was repossessed last week, and yesterday there were police officers and men in suits at the door." My mind raced. "Did you speak with my parents about any of this?" "I tried, dear. Your mother just says everything's fine, but she looks terrible. Lost weight, always wearing sunglasses, even on cloudy days. Your father hasn't been to work in weeks, as far as I can tell. And you have no idea where Brooke and Tyler went. None, though, she hesitated. Last week, there was a small article in the local paper about investments gone wrong. Something about a technology startup that turned out to be fraudulent. I thought of your father's excited talk about some big investment last year. After thanking Mrs. Reynolds and promising to stay in touch, I hung up and relayed the conversation to Amanda. It sounds like that Tyler guy was running a scam after all, she said. You were right. That doesn't make me feel any better. I sighed. If he's disappeared with their money, my parents must be devastated. Amanda gave me a searching look. Are you actually feeling sorry for them? After what they did to you? I don't know what I'm feeling, I admitted. Validated that my suspicions were right, worried about how bad things might be, angry that it took a disaster for them to possibly regret their choices. All of the above. You don't owe them anything. Amanda reminded me gently. Not even your concern. I know. I nodded. But I can't just turn it off. They're still my parents. That evening, unable to focus on studying, I searched online for news about investment scams in my hometown. Several results appeared, including the article Mrs. Reynolds had mentioned, and a more detailed piece from a regional business journal. According to the reports, a man named Tyler Matthews had convinced at least 12 local families to invest in a non-existent technology startup, collecting over $1 million before disappearing. The scheme had begun to unravel when early investors started asking about their promised returns. I was about to close my laptop when a notification appeared on my phone. An email from my father's address, the first communication in nearly a year. The subject line read simply, "Please." With trembling fingers, I opened it. Jade, I know we have no right to ask anything of you. What we did was unforgivable, but we are in serious trouble. The house is being foreclosed on. All our money is gone. Brooke left with Tyler months ago, and now the police say he was running a Ponzi scheme that defrauded dozens of people. They are investigating us, too, suspecting we might have been accomplices. We weren't, we were just stupid and greedy. If you're reading this, please call. We need help. I set my phone down, emotions churning. Part of me felt vindicated, even satisfied that my warnings had proven correct. Another part ached at the desperation in my father's message, and still another part, the wounded child within me, feared this was another manipulation. I didn't respond to the email that night or the next morning. I went to my classes, worked my lab shift, and tried to process my feelings. By afternoon, I decided to wait until the weekend to make any decision about contacting them. I needed more time to prepare emotionally for whatever might come next. Then my phone exploded. I was walking across campus when it began vibrating continuously in my pocket. When I pulled it out, the screen showed 27 missed calls and 14 voicemails. Some were from my parents' cell phones, others from numbers I didn't recognize. All had come within the last hour. Finding a quiet spot on a bench under a tree, I steeled myself and played the first voicemail. My mother's voice trembling and barely recognizable. Jade, please call us back. The FBI just left our house. They're saying Tyler was involved in more than just investment fraud. Money laundering, identity theft, even connections to organized crime. He's disappeared with Brooke, and we're worried she's in danger. Please, we need you. The second message was my father sounding older and defeated. They froze our bank accounts, Jade. Everything. We're being treated like criminals when we're victims too. I know you warned us. You were right, and I was a fool. A greedy, arrogant fool who hurt the only daughter who ever truly loved him. I'm so sorry, Jade. So sorry for everything. Message after message played, each more desperate than the last. The most recent was from a woman who identified herself as FBI agent Lawson, asking me to contact her regarding my sister's whereabouts and my knowledge of Tyler Matthews' operations. My hands shaking, I called Amanda. I think I need to go home, I said when she answered. It's worse than we thought. The FBI is involved and Brooke might be in danger. I'll drive you, she offered immediately. Pack a bag. We can be on the road in an hour. You don't have to. I'm not letting you face this alone, she interrupted firmly. Besides, someone needs to make sure you don't get sucked back into their dysfunction. I'm your emotional bodyguard for this trip. Tears of gratitude filled my eyes. Thank you. Before leaving, I called FBI agent Lawson, who confirmed that Tyler Matthews was under federal investigation for multiple financial crimes. He had disappeared 3 days earlier, and while they believed Brooke had initially left willingly with him, they now had concerns about her safety based on his previous pattern with other women. "We don't believe your sister was involved in his criminal activities," Agent Lawson assured me, "but she may have information that could help us locate him. Any assistance you can provide would be appreciated." Within 2 hours, Amanda and I were driving toward my hometown, my mind racing with questions and fears. What would I find when I arrived? How would I face the parents who had betrayed me? And most urgently, was Brooke in genuine danger from the man she'd chosen over her family? The 3-hour drive gave me time to prepare mentally, but nothing could have prepared me for what awaited. As we turned onto my childhood street, I gasped. The once immaculate lawn of my parents' home was overgrown and littered with scattered newspapers. The flowers my mother had meticulously tended were wilted and dying. The house itself seemed to sag with neglect, paint peeling from the trim, and a broken window covered with cardboard. "Is that it?" Amanda asked, slowing the car. I nodded, unable to speak. This physical manifestation of my family's collapse hit me harder than I had expected. Despite everything seeing their home, my home in such disrepair felt like a punch to the gut. As we pulled into the driveway, the front door opened. My mother emerged, and I barely recognized her. The stylish, always put-together woman who had raised me now appeared gaunt, her clothes hanging loosely on her frame, hair unkempt. When she saw me stepping out of the car, she froze, then rushed forward with a cry. I instinctively stiffened as she threw her arms around me, sobbing against my shoulder. "Jade, you came! You actually came!" Over her shoulder, I saw my father in the doorway, equally transformed. The confident, often intimidating man who had dismissed me so cruelly, now stooped with apparent shame, his face haggard and eyes hollow. "I needed to understand what's happening," I said gently, disentangling myself from my mother's embrace. "And I'm worried about Brooke." Of course, of course." My mother nodded frantically. "Please come inside, both of you," she added, noticing Amanda hovering protectively nearby. The interior of the house was as shocking as the exterior. Gone were the carefully arranged furnishings and spotless surfaces. Paperwork covered every flat surface, some marked with official government seals. Empty takeout containers suggested they had stopped cooking entirely. The grand piano that had been my mother's pride was missing entirely, presumably sold. We sat awkwardly in the living room, the weight of the past year hanging between us like a physical presence. "Start from the beginning," I said, finding my voice. "When did you realize Tyler was a fraud?" My parents exchanged glances before my father spoke. "It started about 2 months after we," he stumbled, unable to directly reference their betrayal. "Tyler kept delaying the returns he promised, always with plausible excuses. Manufacturing delays, regulatory issues, problems with international partners. We were still trusting him then." My mother added, her voice small. "He was so convincing, showing us documents, emails from supposed business partners." "Then he started asking for more money," my father continued. "Said the initial phase had hit unexpected keys, but the potential returns were even higher than projected. We mortgaged the house." I closed my eyes briefly, absorbing the extent of their gullibility. "And Brooke, was she involved in the scam?" "No." My mother shook her head vehemently. She believed in him completely. When the FBI first started investigating, she defended him, said it was all a misunderstanding. Then one morning they were both gone, left a note saying they were going to fix everything, not to worry. "That was 3 months ago," my father added. "The last contact we had was a text from Brooke 6 weeks ago saying they were flying to meet investors who would solve all the problems. Nothing since then." I glanced at Amanda, who raised an eyebrow in silent communication. We both recognized the likely reality. Tyler had fled to avoid prosecution, and Brooke had either gone willingly or been coerced. "The FBI thinks he might have hurt her," my mother whispered, voicing the fear hanging in the air. "They found patterns in his past. Other women who invested with him then disappeared when things unraveled. A chill ran through me. Despite our differences, the thought of Brooke in danger awakened protective instincts I thought had died when they betrayed me. "Have you told the FBI everything you know about him?" I asked. "Every detail, no matter how small we think so." My father nodded, but we're not thinking clearly these days. I looked around the room again, noting the foreclosure notices among the papers. "How bad is your financial situation?" My father covered his face with his hands. "Total collapse. Every penny gone. The house will be taken next month. My job, I was let go when the scandal broke. Your mother had to sell her jewelry, the piano, anything of value. And my college money," I couldn't help asking. "The money you took from me?" The question hung in the air like an accusation. My mother began to sob again, and my father looked directly at me for the first time. "It was the first money he took, Jade. All gone. What we did to you." His voice broke. "There are no words to express how deeply I regret it. How ashamed I am. You were the only one who saw through him, and we punished you for it. Called you terrible things." I nodded, not yet ready to offer forgiveness. "I'm going to speak with the FBI agents. Maybe there are details about Brooke that I might remember that could help find her." As if on cue, the doorbell rang. Agent Lawson had arrived for our scheduled meeting. For the next 2 hours, I answered her questions about Brooke, our childhood, any places she might go if in trouble. I shared my early impressions of Tyler, the conversation I'd overheard, the warning signs I'd noticed. "This is very helpful," Agent Lawson said, closing her notebook. "Your sister may have been manipulated, but we don't believe she's a willing accomplice. Finding her is a priority." After she left, I sat with my parents again, the gulf between us still vast, but slightly bridged by our shared concern for Brooke. "What will you do now?" I finally asked them. "When you lose the house?" They exchanged glances again. "We don't know," my mother admitted. "Your father's brother offered his garage apartment temporarily, but it's across the country. We have no money for moving expenses, and the car was repossessed." I felt Amanda watching me, aware of the unspoken plea in my parents' words. They wanted my help after destroying my future. Part of me wanted to walk away to let them face the consequences of their choices alone. But another part recognized the broken people before me as victims too, albeit ones who had participated in their own destruction. "I can't fix this for you," I said carefully. "I don't have money to give you. I'm working multiple jobs just to stay in school after what you did." "We would never ask that of you," my father said quickly. "Never again. But I can help you make a plan," I continued. "Help you organize your documents for the bankruptcy attorney. Maybe find resources for people in your situation." Relief flooded their faces at this small offering, and I realized how desperate they truly were, how completely their world had collapsed. We were discussing options for their immediate future when the front door suddenly opened. We all turned startled. In the doorway stood Brooke alone and unrecognizable from the glamorous sister I'd last seen. Her designer clothes were replaced by a wrinkled t-shirt and jeans. Her perfect makeup was gone, revealing dark circles and a pallor that spoke of sleepless nights. She clutched a small backpack and stared at us with a mixture of fear and defiance. "Brooke!" My mother leapt up, rushing toward her. Brooke flinched back. "Don't touch me," she said, her voice hoarse. "I can't stay. I just came to warn you. Tyler's not who you think he is. He's dangerous, and he's angry that you talked to the FBI." My father approached slowly. "Brooke, where have you been? Are you hurt?" She shook her head. "Not physically, but I found out things about the others, women before me, what happened to them when they threatened to expose him." I stood, moving carefully toward my sister. "Brooke, the FBI is looking for you. They can protect you. Tyler's under federal investigation." She looked at me with surprise, as if just noticing my presence. "Jade, why are you here after what we did to you?" "That's not important right now," I said. "What's important is your safety. Where is Tyler?" "I don't know exactly," she replied, glancing nervously at the open door. "I left him at a motel 3 states away. Waited until he was in the shower and just ran." Hitchhiked, took buses, anything to get back here. To warn you. You need to call Agent Lawson, I said firmly, taking out my phone. Right now, tell her everything. Brooke hesitated, then nodded. Okay, but after that, I have to disappear again. He's got contacts everywhere, people who work for him. As I dialed the FBI agent's number, I studied my sister, the golden child whose future had once seemed so bright. Now she was a fugitive, terrified and alone, her trust shattered by the man she'd chosen over her family. Agent Lawson answered, and within minutes had arranged for protection for all of us. Stay where you are, she instructed. A team will be there in 20 minutes. We'll need Brooke to come in for a full statement, but her information could be crucial to apprehending Matthews. After hanging up, I turned to find Brooke staring at me, tears streaming down her face. I don't understand why you're helping us, she whispered. After what I said to you, what we all said. I considered her question seriously. Because despite everything, you're still my sister, and because no one deserves what Tyler did to you, to all of you. I was so stupid, she said, voice breaking. So vain and stupid. He knew exactly how to play me, how to make me feel special. By the time I realized what was happening, I was too ashamed to admit it. And then I found out about the others. The others? I prompted gently. Other fiancés, she explained, wiping at her tears. At least 3 that I know of. Women he romanced, got engaged to, used to access their family's money. One disappeared completely after threatening to go to the police. Another was found. She trailed off, unable to complete the thought. The implications hung heavily in the room. My sister had narrowly escaped something far worse than financial ruin. The promised FBI protection team arrived, securing the house and taking preliminary statements from Brooke. They would escort her to their offices in the morning for a complete debrief. But tonight they would keep watch to ensure Tyler's contacts, if they existed, couldn't reach her. As the initial chaos settled, I found myself alone with Brooke in the kitchen, while our parents spoke with agents in the living room. I don't expect you to forgive me, she said quietly, staring into the mug of tea I had made her. What I said to you that day about you being a failure, I was just repeating what Tyler had coached me to say. He knew you were suspicious of him, said we needed to cut you out completely. That doesn't excuse Mom and Dad, I pointed out. No, she agreed. But they were already under his spell by then. He studied people, found their weaknesses. Dad was easy, his pride in being a good provider, his desire for wealth. Mom was her social status, her fear of growing old without security. And yours? I asked. What weakness did he exploit in you? Brooke looked up, her eyes filled with a new clarity born of suffering. My jealousy of you, she admitted. My whole life I knew you were the smart one, the one with real potential. I had looks and popularity, but those fade. Tyler made me feel like I was the special one for once, like I had won the prize you couldn't get. Her honesty stunned me. I never knew you felt that way. I was always jealous of how easily you fit in, how much attention and love you got from Mom and Dad. She gave a bitter laugh. Looks like we both envied things that weren't worth having. Before I could respond, Agent Lawson entered the kitchen. We have news, she announced. Based on the information Brooke has provided, we've located a property we believe Matthews is using as a safe house. Teams are moving in now. Will you catch him? Brooke asked, fear and hope mingling in her voice. There's a very good chance. The agent nodded. Your testimony will be crucial in ensuring he faces the maximum penalties. As the night progressed into early morning, we received confirmation Tyler Matthews had been apprehended trying to flee the safe house. The relief on Brooke's face was palpable, though I knew her recovery from this trauma was just beginning. With the immediate danger past, I found myself facing a decision about my role in my family's future. They had betrayed me in the worst possible way, stolen my hard-earned money, and shattered my trust. Yet here they were, broken and repentant, needing help I was uniquely positioned to provide. As dawn broke, I stepped outside for air, Amanda following me onto the porch. You don't owe them anything, she reminded me again. You can walk away with a clear conscience. I nodded, watching the sunrise paint the neglected yard in golden light. I know, but I think it'll help them find a path forward. Not for them, but for me. so I can move on knowing I didn't become like them when they were at their worst. Just don't sacrifice your future again, she warned. I won't, I promised. There will be boundaries, clear, firm boundaries. And in that moment, I realized that while the wound my family had inflicted would always leave a scar, I no longer needed to let it define me. I had built a new life from nothing once. I could continue building it while helping them find their way back from the abyss, but on my terms this time. The choice to help wasn't about forgiveness, not yet. It was about reclaiming my power and defining myself by my own values rather than their treatment of me. It was the first step on a longer journey of healing, not just for them, but for me as well. When I think about that chaotic period after Tyler's arrest, I'm still amazed by how quickly life can transform, both falling apart and rebuilding. The weeks following that night were a blur of FBI interviews, legal consultations, and difficult family conversations as we all navigated the aftermath of his destruction. Brooke's testimony proved invaluable to the federal case. Tyler Matthews, whose real name turned out to be Andrew Blackwell, was charged with multiple counts of wire fraud, money laundering, and extortion. The evidence Brooke provided helped authorities connect him to similar schemes in 3 other states. When faced with the mountain of evidence against him, he accepted a plea deal resulting in a 20-year prison sentence. For my parents, the legal consequences of their involvement were less severe but still significant. Though they weren't charged as accomplices, their financial ruin was complete. The house was lost to foreclosure, bankruptcy was inevitable, and my father's professional reputation was in tatters. At 57, he found himself starting over completely. As for me, I kept my promise to myself, too. I helped them navigate the practical aspects of their collapse without sacrificing my own hard-won stability. I researched bankruptcy procedures, connected them with a nonprofit legal aid organization, and helped them catalog their remaining assets for court filings. But I maintained clear boundaries, returning to school after a week and continuing my own life. You need to understand something, I told them the day before I left. I'm willing to help you rebuild, but our relationship has to be completely different than before. I won't be taken for granted or treated as less valuable than Brooke ever again. My mother, still adjusting to her new reality, had nodded tearfully. We don't deserve your help at all, Jade. The fact that you're giving it says more about you than it ever could about us. We're learning what true character looks like. My father added, the humility in his voice still strange to my ears. By watching you. They accepted my terms. They would attend family therapy sessions via video call with me once weekly. They would actively seek employment, no matter how humble. And they would never again make financial decisions that affected the family without full transparency and discussion. In exchange, I helped them relocate to a small apartment in my university town, where the cost of living was lower than our suburb and job opportunities more plentiful. My father found work as a night security guard, a massive step down from his executive position, but a start. My mother, who had never worked outside the home, took a position as a retail clerk. Their combined income barely covered their modest expenses, but it allowed them to begin rebuilding with dignity. Brooke faced her own challenging recovery. The psychological impact of Tyler's manipulation and betrayal left deep wounds. Unlike our parents, who had lost money and status, Brooke had lost her sense of self and security. She jumped at loud noises, had nightmares about Tyler finding her, and struggled with crushing shame over her role in what happened. I keep seeing your face that day, she confessed during one of our coffee meetings 3 months after everything had happened. When Mom said those awful things about you being a nobody, I just stood there and piled on. How can you even look at me now? I've had a lot of time to process it all, I replied honestly. At first I hated you, all of you, but eventually I realized that hatred was only hurting me. Tyler manipulated all of you because he saw vulnerabilities he could exploit. That doesn't excuse what we did, she insisted. No, it doesn't, I agreed. But understanding it helps me move forward without carrying that burden of anger. Brooke enrolled in community college that fall, her first step toward reclaiming her education. She chose psychology as her focus, determined to understand the dynamics of manipulation and eventually help other victims. The formerly materialistic sister who had mocked my studying now approached her education with a seriousness that would have been unimaginable a year earlier. Meanwhile, my own academic journey continued with renewed purpose. The research position with Dr. Morgan expanded into a prestigious fellowship, and my grades remained excellent despite the family drama. By maintaining my boundaries and focusing on self-care, I prevented their crisis from derailing the future I'd worked so hard to rebuild. 18 months after the day my mother called me a pathetic nobody, we gathered for a modest Thanksgiving dinner in my apartment. Amanda and her boyfriend joined us, providing both moral support for me and a buffer for potentially tense family dynamics. But to my surprise, the meal progressed without major incident. My father, now working as an assistant manager at the security company and taking night classes in bookkeeping, raised his glass of sparkling cider. "I want to propose a toast," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "to Jade, who showed us what real strength looks like. When we were at our worst, you found it in yourself to help us when we deserved nothing. I will spend the rest of my life trying to be worthy of calling myself your father." My mother wiped tears from her eyes. "And to new beginnings," she added, "to a family being rebuilt on honesty and respect, not appearances." Brooke, now in her second semester with a 4.0 GPA, reached for my hand under the table and squeezed it gently. To my sister, who never gave up on any of us, even when she had every reason to, "I'm so proud to be related to you." I felt a complex wave of emotions wash over me as I looked at their faces. The past could not be erased. The words spoken that terrible day would always exist in my memory. But here in this moment, I saw three people who had been humbled by their mistakes and were genuinely committed to change. The family dynamics that had privileged Brooke's beauty over my intelligence, that had dismissed my concerns and stolen my future, were being dismantled and rebuilt into something healthier. "To healing," I said simply, raising my own glass, "and to defining success on our own terms, not by what others think or what we own." Later that evening, after our guests and family had departed, I sat alone on my small balcony, reflecting on the journey of the past 2 years. From the crushing betrayal by those who should have protected me, to the unexpected resilience I discovered within myself. From financial devastation to a hard-won stability. From a broken family to one cautiously mending its deep fractures. The path forward wasn't perfect or certain. Trust, once shattered, rebuilds slowly. My parents still had years of financial recovery ahead. Brooke still battled the psychological effects of Tyler's manipulation. And I still had moments of anger and hurt when memories surfaced unexpectedly. But I had learned something invaluable through it all. My worth was never determined by my parents' assessment or my sister's jealousy. It wasn't measured by bank accounts or others' approval. My worth came from within, from my compassion, resilience, and determination, from my ability to help others even after being hurt, from my courage to set boundaries and demand respect. I was never a pathetic nobody. I was always something extraordinary in the making a person of substance, being forged through challenges that would have broken someone with less inner strength. When my phone rings now, I no longer feel dread at seeing my family's names. When we gather, the old dynamics no longer dominate our interactions. We've all been transformed by our shared trauma, emerging as more authentic, humble versions of ourselves. The materialistic values that once defined our family have been replaced by an appreciation for honesty, hard work, and genuine connection. As I watched the stars appear one by one in the evening sky, I realized that the theft of my college fund, devastating as it was, had given me something priceless in return: the knowledge of my own resilience and the freedom to define myself on my own terms. No betrayal, no cruel words, no financial setback could take that away from me. Has your family ever underestimated you or taken you for granted? What did you learn about yourself when you had to stand on your own? Share your story in the comments. And if this journey of resilience resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to hear that their worth isn't determined by others' judgments. Thank you for being part of this community, where we transform our deepest wounds into wisdom. Remember, sometimes those who dismiss you as a nobody are the ones who teach you how truly extraordinary you are.